friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Lindsay Thurston, and in today's video, we're gonna dive into the super fun yet precarious world of interior paint colors. Do you stand in front of the paint chip wall at your local hardware store perplexed by the hundreds, if not thousands, of paint options? Never selected a paint color before? Past mistakes have you nervous to try again? We've all been there. Seriously, come along with me, learn from my mistakes, watch this video all the way to the end for all my best tips, including selecting paint colors you'll love, all my favorite paint colors that I'd recommend, and all of the absolute best necessary painting supplies to make sure it's a job you enjoy rather than one that you hate. Let's get into it. I know you're excited to personalize your new home, but resist the urge to run down to the paint store with an idea in your head and nothing to reference it with. Consider these paint-altering factors at play. Paint colors often look different in the store than they do in your home. Most hardware stores have fluorescent lighting. Most hardware stores have concrete flooring. Looking over the walls at hundreds of paint samples can start to cloud your vision. This all influences how you experience colors on a tiny paint chip. With so many options, it's easy to plunk down your money on the wrong color. And although fairly inexpensive, painting can be a hassle. It can add up, especially if you're painting through an entire new living space. Changing a mistake later down the road can be a chore. This leads right into my first tip. I want you to have something to reference your vision with when you are in the store looking at all these different options. Consider the colors of existing furnishings. Think about your favorite art pieces, area rugs, large furniture pieces, the wood tone of hardwood flooring or vinyl flooring. Maybe you've got wall-to-wall carpeting. What about trim color? Are you gonna paint it? Are you gonna keep it the way it is? And if you are, you're gonna wanna make sure that it coordinates with the wall color you're selecting. It's important to remember that art is often one of a kind. Textiles can be hard to find in the price point that you're looking for. So often it's good to source or repurpose those from another living space first and then build your wall color around those items, because remember, wall color comes in hundreds if not thousands of options. You can even color match something by taking it into your local hardware store, so it's a good idea to make sure that the other harder to find items are being thought of first. Don't forget to take time to get inspired. Think about places that you can source different images to get you thinking about the kind of space and vibe you want to create. I'm a huge Pinterest user. I love to create new boards when I move into a new space to gather inspiration. You also want to take a look and consider contrast and composition of your space, and Pinterest can be a great way to source ideas for those things too. Check out your favorite home decor retailers. They've got usually a list of preferred or recommended paint colors that go with their stuff. One of my favorite things to do is to get on the Pottery Barn website and scroll through all of their favorite paint colors that they recommend. You can make sure that they absolutely look beautiful, just like they do in the just like they do in the showrooms in the store. Specialty paint companies like Sherwin-Williams and Benjamin Moore have tons of booklets that they put out every year for their different lines of paints, and it's really fun to go through all of the different color combinations that they recommend. I never really go for exactly what they recommend, but it does kind of open my eyes to colors that I might not have considered otherwise. And finally, I'm surprised I'm mentioning this last, but think about nature. Think about your favorite places. Think about the colors that really make you respond in some positive way, that make you feel good. When creating the color palette for our new home, I am so inspired by a couple of different things. The first, of course, nature. I love the beach. Travis and I love to go to the Oregon coast every single year, and I'm very inspired by all of the different cool blue tones, all the different varying tones of white in the clouds and in the landscape. I love the natural greenery. I love the sand colors. All those things are very inspiring. Another thing that super inspires me on color palettes is my wardrobe. I'm a big denim lover and I wear a fair amount of black, and so those things tend to find their way into my interior design style. Lastly, before you buy any gallon of paint, any giant tanker of paint to paint your whole brand new house, I'm gonna caution you and ask you to hold back just a little and buy a paint sample first. Every paint retailer and hardware store is going to sell, usually for $5 to $10, a small little can of of paint, usually about a pint size. I know it can be a little bit of an investment, but trust me, it's worth it. Like many of you, I can be super impatient when it comes to design. I get an idea in my head and I want to execute it as fast as possible, but often that leads to things that I end up redoing later. So to avoid that, instead of getting so excited to paint and just rushing and buying the gallon, I really try to hold back now and buy a sample size. That way I can bring a bunch of samples home for a relatively small investment, $40 to $50. I can bring home a bunch of different paints that I'm thinking about, paint them in large sections around the house, monitor the change in color over different days and times and lighting situations. I can try different light bulbs, warm or cool or daylight or neutral tone light bulbs. All those things can play a big role in my experience of the color that can make or break my final decision. And often I find that it does lead me into a better direction. Paint different areas around the room that experience different light and shade. Try out different light bulbs and see how that affects the paint color. Paint a section of the wall and then hold up or hang up your piece of art over top so you can at least see a little strip of it and how it interacts with the colors in your art piece. Same goes for furniture pieces. If you have a dresser, for example, that is a family heirloom that is very important to you, you might want to double check the paint color around that piece of furniture just to make sure that the warm wood tone or whatever wood tone you've got, I'm thinking of my dresser, whatever wood tone you've got plays nicely with the paint color you've selected. Now that we've gone over a few things about what you should think about before you buy, testing things out, now it's time to think about selecting your actual paint when you're standing in the store. If you're new to painting walls and interior spaces, there's a lot to learn about paint Sheens. I have some great ideas to share with you what I like to do in my home, but I definitely want to tell you I am not a painting expert and I would encourage you to speak with an expert at your local hardware store or paint specialty store. For most interior walls, I'm always going to recommend eggshell finish. It's a step up from flat. It's a little bit easier to clean, but it's not so shiny that it draws a lot of light reflection. And I personally like it because it gives an overall sense of the wall color without being overly influenced by light near it. For woodwork and trim, I prefer Benjamin Moore Advance. It's their highest level of paint and it goes pretty much over any surface in gloss or matte finish. A lot of people ask me if they should paint their ceilings, and the answer is yes. Try a semi-gloss finish on a lower ceiling. Reflecting light can make the space feel a lot bigger and brighter. Please don't avoid this. It's not that hard. Make sure that you get an extendable roller. I'll talk about that more when we get to paint supplies. With a stepladder, it's pretty much a snap. Since most ceilings are a light tone to begin with, even if your walls are a darker color, usually it only takes about one coat to get a really great finish. Brightening that white to coordinate better with your wall color and trim color can make your home feel custom, fresh, and brand new, even if you live in an older home like we do. One of my best tips is to paint literally everything in the room other than the floor. I'm doing that in my home office. I have a little bit more touching up to do in here, and this has really opened up the space. Add dimension to millwork by painting your trim and woodwork a contrasting color. Even a slight variation in darker or lighter tone can make a huge difference and make your space feel crisp and custom. Try creating a cohesive color palette for your home. That's one of my favorite tips for making your home easy to shop and redecorate without buying anything. And when everything coordinates, pretty much everything looks good in every single room. I love to use the Benjamin Moore app to save different paint colors and tones that I'm interested in. I also use it sometimes to find a paint color that matches a piece of furniture or art, and that way I can really create a little palette that I can reference when I'm shopping. I can easily pull up any color and see that my purchase is going to match the things in my home. Using one palette with slight variations all across your home creates a cohesive feeling that's super easy to design around. Now, what you've probably been waiting for, my best recommended paint colors. These are my tried and true best picks that have worked in so many spaces, and some of these are new paint colors I've just discovered that I'll be using here in our new home. I'll be sharing 4 different types of paint colors here: my favorite whites and off-whites, my favorite neutrals, my favorite muted tones, and for those of you who crave a little bit of drama in your interior design, my favorite bold color choices. I'm gonna link all of these in the description box down below so you can easily find them and maybe use them in your space. I think it's really important if you like white walls or trims somewhere in your house to find a white that you use throughout your home. Rather than having several different whites, I like to go for one that's sort of the official white of my home. And in this home, we have gone with Benjamin Moore Chantilly Lace. It's long been my favorite white paint color. I did try a few other options before deciding on this one, but honestly, once we got that paint up in the living room, dining room, kitchen, and family room, this space really started to feel like our home. Chantilly Lace is a pretty neutral white. If you're looking for something a little bit more creamy, I would definitely recommend Benjamin Moore Simply White. It is so beautiful. Another color is Benjamin Moore White Dove. It's a little bit more off-white leaning. And another off-white that I absolutely love, I considered it for the trim color around our house, Benjamin Moore Intense White. Intense White sounds like it's super bright, but in reality, it's a little bit of an off-white, just a little bit of a slight beige tone. Next up, my favorite neutrals. Benjamin Moore Seapearl is a new color I discovered recently, and I'm very excited to use it somewhere in our home. I just haven't decided where yet. It's a beautiful warm neutral tone and very pale. My personal favorite new color is the color of these walls behind me. It's Benjamin Moore Balboa Mist. After trying so many different off-white and beige paint colors, I finally figured out that Balboa Mist will be our official trim color throughout our home. You can probably tell looking at this color with Chantilly Lace white on a lot of the walls in our living spaces, and then this beige tone, this Balboa Mist on the trim. I'm going for a little bit more contrast, and I'm really excited to see how it turns out. If you're looking for a cooler neutral tone, I highly recommend Benjamin Moore Horizon. I used it in our home office in our last rental house, and it was a beautiful backdrop for filming video. If you want a darker tone beige, I love Benjamin Moore Thunder. I used it for the bottom half of an accent wall in our bedroom in our rental house, and it completely transformed the space. I'll make sure to link that video here so you can check it out. Another new color I sampled recently is Benjamin Moore Natural Linen. It almost reminds me of like a Sahara Desert kind of a color. It's a very warm tone, mid-tone beige. I think it would make a really beautiful wall color for a hallway or a bathroom or even a bedroom. And if you're looking for an interesting black tone to use for something in your space, a lot of people are starting to do black walls with a lot of light furniture and accessories. It's a really cool look right now. My personal favorite black paint right now is Sherwin-Williams Green Black. Now this color has definitely been a designer favorite for a hot minute. I've seen it pop up in a lot of different designs, and we're thinking about using this to repaint the lower cabinets in our kitchen. Let's talk about some muted tones. Some of you are like, I'm so sick of all this neutral decorating. I want to see some color. I'm going to give you a bunch of muted colors and some bold ones to think about. Benjamin Moore Thicket is a beautiful, calming green. It's got a little bit of a yellow leaning bent. It's almost like an olivey. Tranquility is another color I'm considering for possibly our guest bedroom. It's a very light tone, sort of blue-green, almost a sage. It's got a little bit of a dirty hint to it, which I really like. I like looking for a little bit of a dingy color. Sometimes when you go for a really bright tone, it feels a little bit child's bedroom when you get it into a living space. And so looking for something with sort of muddy or dirty undertones can make a color feel a little bit more sophisticated. Take a look at the Pottery Barn recommended colors. You'll see a lot of sort of gray or beige undertone in a lot of colors, and it does just sort of elevate the space. Benjamin Moore Solitude is another great muted tone. It's a little bit of a grayish blue. I can really see that popping with some white curtains, maybe some linen flowing. If you're into more purple tones, I'm also really loving Bonne Nuit. It means good night in French, and it's a very kind of muddy purple color. It's very dingy, as I said. It's got that sort of sophisticated vibe without being like a royal purple, and it could really add dimension to a space. I like the idea of doing this for maybe the bottom half of the wall with some interesting molding. That might be a fun way to incorporate a color like this, but without it taking over the entire room. Next, let's talk about some of my favorite bold color options. Benjamin Moore Potter's Clay is one of the colors of the year. It's absolutely stunning. I love that it kind of has that natural terracotta feeling. Oh, it's so beautiful. Benjamin Moore Brookside Moss is another sort of yellowy green tone. It's got a lot more pigment to it than thicket, and I really like this sort of olivey green color. It might be a beautiful backdrop for the neutral cream tone bedding that we're putting in our guest bedroom. Benjamin Moore Kensington Blue is my probably favorite blue paint color. I've selected it for our hallway here in our new home, and I think it's really gonna pop with a lot of neutrals around it. And I'm pulling in that denim blue color through this paint color, but also through some different accessories, rugs, art, and other things that will make this color feel like a cohesive part of our space. Having fun with a paint color in a hallway or closet can really help you build some confidence if you're not sure about trying something bold like that. If you're into navies, I also love Benjamin Moore Days End. It's a little bit darker than Kensington Blue. It's a little bit more black leaning than Kensington Blue, and it just has a beautiful overall tone. I could see either of these navies with some light or bright or white art to really break up that dark color and make a space feel light and bright even with dark walls. Benjamin Moore Amazon Green is another great one. It's a deep, bold blue-green tone that will really get you excited to look for some art that will really, really be highlighted by this backdrop. And finally, if you like a true green, Sherwood Forest, again by Benjamin Moore. You can tell where I usually buy my paint colors. Not sponsored, by the way. Benjamin Moore, feel free to give me a ring anytime. Benjamin Moore Sherwood Forest is one of the most beautiful, bold emerald green tones I've ever seen. And if I wanted to go bold in a room in our house, I definitely would consider this option. I'd love to check out all your favorite paint colors. Maybe you can help inspire me to try something new in our home. Now that we've gone over inspiration, you've selected that awesome paint color, let's talk about all the painting supplies that, although you're gonna have to shell out a little cash for, these are the things that are gonna make painting a pleasure instead of a pain. First, you're definitely gonna want a screwdriver so you can remove all outlets from the entire space. Any metal fixtures should be taken out. Then you're gonna wanna fill some holes. I recommend getting that pink spackle. It dries in a white shade so that you know when it's dry. Painting spackle before it's fully dry can make it take forever to dry. It can also make it collapse after you've worked so hard to flatten it. Also, a little bit of spray texture is a great thing to add to your arsenal so that you can fix any imperfections in the wall and hide them. And don't forget a small flat spade. You don't want to have to use your fingers to get that stuff in there. You want to get a really clean, fresh look, and the only way to do that is with a flat edge spade. Don't forget a sturdy tray. It can be plastic or metal. They don't usually cost very much. And yes, you are gonna want that with a liner on top. On that note, don't forget your paint tray liners. Go ahead, spring for a pack of 10 tray liners, especially if you're moving into a new home and plan to do a lot of painting. You're gonna run out of those things a lot. Stock up, make it simple. And usually when you buy a bigger pack, they're cheaper. Remember, they come in all different sizes. You have a typical roller size that's about 9 inches. Then you've got some smaller roller options, usually a 6-inch or a 4-inch. I personally prefer a 9-inch like standard roller and then a 4-inch. That way I can get into the small little mini wall sections, especially when painting a bathroom or hallway. Don't forget drop cloths. These can be old sheets, tarps. It could be purchased from the local hardware store, could be a big heavy canvas specifically for painting. Sometimes they sell disposable ones made out of plastic or paper or some sort of combination. It really doesn't matter, but try to get probably 2, especially if you have a large space. Remember, they can cover the floor, but they can also cover furniture pieces, computers, technology, and really protect everything so that you don't have a mistake that you're cursing yourself over. Painter's tape, yeah, it's pretty necessary. Even if you have a very steady hand for trim work, having that backup, especially in your own home, makes a big difference. You don't want to get a swipe of paint on the hardwood, not notice it until the next day, and then be in a position where you have to refinish part of your floor. That is awful. I have a lot of different preferred paints, and of course I have a lot of different tapes that I prefer too. There's the standard Scotch blue painter's tape. It works great, but I actually would highly recommend a couple of other options to consider, especially if you're in an old home, if you have orange peel finish on walls or anything that you're a little concerned about. Scotch also makes a green rough surface painter's tape. You can use it on any surface. It is a little bit harder to remove than the blue tape, but you can bet there's a crisp line every time, because when you pull it off, it absolutely will pull all paint with it, and a straight line. I've never had, ever had paint seep through that tape. It's amazing. Another one that's super highly recommended and I just recently tried for the first time is the green froggy tape. That one's actually really good too. It's definitely not as strong as the Scotch green rough surface tape, but it's a good middle ground between the blue tape and the green tape from Scotch. And that one's the green froggy tape. So also a great option. Trust me, don't buy the cheapest roller in history. You are going to get so sore trying to use that all over your home. You will even get blisters on your hands. That's happened to me so many times painting, especially throughout a new home. And oh, it's rough. So spend a little bit more money. Go ahead, get one with some padding. That's going to save you. And the other thing is to get one that's extendable. That makes a big difference. That way you don't have to lug a ladder or step stool all around the room several times as you do coat after coat. You can just extend it, get each area, and it moves so much more efficiently, painting the room in often half the time. One of my all-time favorite purchases in my paint kit is the handy paint pail. I love this thing. It's incredible. It's a little plastic container. It's got a little flexible sleeve for your hand to go into. It's got liners just like a paint tray, and you can stick those in, dump in some of your paint. It even has a little magnet to hold the paintbrush to it so that it hangs perfectly inside of the container. It's easy to get up on a ladder, up at the ceiling, and do all that touch up that is so necessary and ubiquitous during the painting process. And so this thing, I'm telling you, is worth every penny. I stock up on those liners too. I make sure I have a ton of those. They are amazing. On that note, I prefer a stubby handled trim brush. They're so much easier to hold in your hand, and Wooster makes one that is actually a rubber handle. This thing is a game changer. If you think that a wooden or metal handle on your roller is going to give you blisters, that trim brush, especially if you're doing trim all over your house like I'm in the process of doing, that will wear out your hands so fast. And that being rubber, oh my gosh, it's incredible. It's flexible, it's so comfortable. It immediately made a difference. All my hand pain is gone since I purchased those, and I actually bought 2 of them. They make one that has a little flip out hook that actually sits on your paint can. That's amazing. It makes it, it's just a tiniest little invention that makes this so much easier. That way you're not dripping paint everywhere and you've got a place to park your brush without rinsing it out if you need a quick break. Most people probably just wear old t-shirts or whatever to paint in. If you don't have that kind of thing, if you are somebody that is maybe a minimalist, maybe you've pared down your clothing and you don't have paint clothes or work clothes, that's totally okay. Remember, at the hardware store, they sell super cheap, just white cotton or even sometimes plastic clothing that you can pull over your regular clothes. Big giant zipper, like a big jumpsuit. They even have hooded, or you can buy the kind that's just like painter's overalls, or you can go to the thrift store and buy some old overalls. But something like that's really handy to have. You can just toss it over your clothes and get painting. You can also use like an old shirt or whatever. It really doesn't matter, but having that little jumpsuit on hand just in case if you do a lot of painting can be a lifesaver. And finally, maybe this is the picky person in me. I don't always do this, but I should do it more. Gloves. I like to have a box of plastic gloves around when I'm painting. That way I don't have to scrub paint out of my cuticles every 5 minutes, getting it all over my arm. Gloves can really help you, especially if you, just got a manicure and you don't want to undo all that wonderful work. Painting your new home can be overwhelming in so many ways, and mistakes are easily avoidable using a lot of the tips that I've shared in today's video. And even if you do make a mistake, fix it. Learn from it. It's okay. You got this. If you liked this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up. It really does a lot to help me out. And as always, these are my opinions, so don't forget to share yours in the comments down below. Subscribe for more interior design and home decor tips. Next week, I'll be sharing the first makeover in our new home, the bathroom. Until then, you might enjoy our main bedroom makeover from our rental house. That room was so special, and I can't wait to make our new bedroom even better. And I'll also link my DIY art ideas down below in case you want to get crafty with the rest of your weekend. And if you do, make sure you let me know. I'd love to see a picture. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye, my friends.